You guys, Dandadan's not overrated. It slaps. What's up, guys? It's your old pal Tony, and I'm back to talk about anime. Again. In one of my last videos, I watched the first episodes of 5 different anime shows. At the risk of spoiling that video, I think you should go watch it. Basically, I grew up watching anime for most of my life, but fell off and hadn't watched any in like a really long time. Like 10 years. Out of all the shows I watched for that video, there were 2 or 3 of them that I was pretty interested to watch more of. So I started with Dandadan, and it sucked me in. Sucked me in. It pulled me in. I got hooked. So I decided to review the first season, minus the first episode, which I reviewed in that last video. If you want to know what I thought about that episode, you can check it out in that video. There's timestamps if you just want to skip to it. I think I'm going to break this season up into probably 3 parts. So I'll review 4 episodes per video. There's 12 episodes in the season. So like I mentioned, we're going to start this one out with episode 2. But just to catch you up on the first episode just in case, our 2 main characters are Momo Ayase and Ken Takakura, 2 high school kids that meet and become friends after investigating the existence of both aliens and ghosts. The boy Ken gets cursed by the ghost of an old lady, and the girl Momo awakens latent psychic telekinetic abilities that give her all kinds of like telekinetic powers and let her summon some like cool ghostly psychic hands. So that's pretty much all you need to know. The first episode ended with Momo and Ken crash landing in the UFO that Momo was abducted in, leaving them kind of just standing in the street. So jumping into episode 2. Oh yeah, and like and subscribe and all that stuff. Episode 2 picks right up where episode 1 left off, with Momo and Ken in the wreckage of the UFO crash after Momo found out that the guy's name is Ken Takakura. So just to catch you up from the first episode again real quick, Momo is like kind of obsessed with finding a boyfriend, and she's also obsessed with this guy who I believe is like a Japanese actor whose name is also Ken Takakura. So when she finds out that that is also this nerd's name, she has to come up with a new name because that like really upsets her for some reason. So Momo officially dubs him Okarun, and for anyone else like me who only watched the dub, they don't bother to explain how she arrived at that name, so I guess I will. In Japanese, occult is okaruto, so since Momo had been calling him Okaruto-kun, occult-kun in the dub, she shortened it to Okarun. Which is also why the dub has her call him occult-kun, which in my other video I mentioned seemed kind of awkward to me, but there you go, there's a reason for it. They just kind of don't explain it. Momo teases Okarun for liking the nickname, and these 2 are pretty cute. I wrote a note that the background music in this show rules, because they're always just playing little tracks in the background that are awesome. So Momo invites Okarun to come to her house because it's now daytime, and Turbo Granny won't be in the tunnel during the day. I noticed them calling her Turbo Granny during the first episode, but I didn't realize that was like her name. But I like it, it's pretty funny. So we see Momo's house, which is this kind of like old-timey looking complex of like shrine-like buildings with a torii gate at the entrance. Okarun bursts into like demonic ghostly flames when he tries to walk through it, cuz Momo's grandma put a paper seal on the torii gate to ward off ghosts, and Okarun like has one inside of him. So Momo takes the seal down so Okarun can go through. Okarun has like an afro thing going on because I guess his hair got messed up from all the shenanigans of the first episode. It's kind of funny. I really got a kick out of Momo's room. It's like super pink and just packed full of stuff. In the context of this kind of traditional looking house, it just really kind of caught me off guard. But it kind of reminds me of my room actually. Just a lot of shit. By the way, do you like my Dandadan lighting? I went with the pink and like bluish green. It's thematic. So Momo has to constantly use her powers to keep Okarun from being taken over by Turbo Granny. I kind of actually like this dynamic where they kind of rely on each other, or at least for now, Okarun kind of relies on Momo. I think they'll kind of grow out of needing each other so much, but for now I really like it. It's really got them forming like a strong bond from the beginning. So if you remember from the first episode, Okarun still doesn't have his dick back. So this is why they have to go back to the tunnel so that they can challenge Turbo Granny and figure out some way to get this guy's dick back. Okarun mentions that he was desperate to talk to Momo because he just really wants a friend. He kind of mopes about it. He mopes a lot, which can get a little annoying, but it's also kind of understandable. I mean, this is just like a pretty lonely kid. Momo tells him that he doesn't have friends because he just pushes everyone away, and she says she won't ignore him just because he tells her to. And I was like, ooh, she likes him. But Okarun kind of ruins the moment by just immediately calling her a bitch, which he often does. But honestly, I think Momo kind of likes his earnestness. So, some ghost rings a ghostly second doorbell that Momo just has on her house, apparently. It's like a second doorbell that's only for ghosts, like the joke toilet that's just for farts.
But with a joke hole that's just for farts!
Momo realizes that she fucked up and forgot to put the seal back in the torii gate, which obviously she had to have done because Okarun would have had to leave. So they go outside to see what's going on. Some weird tech like flashes in the air, and suddenly like a giant solid concrete cube just forms around the entire complex of houses. They can't put the seal back on the torii gate now because Okarun will just be trapped inside. They both start bleeding like from the nose, like their brains are melting. And there's some kind of ghostly black fog hanging in the air that I guess is causing this brain damage. I don't know if it's like mold spores or what. It turns out it's coming from this crazy looking big sumo wrestler yokai guy with like a hinged puppet mouth that looks like he's made out of like wood or straw or something. Apparently, this guy wants Okarun's banana. So they're like, well, I guess it's an alien because that's their thing. Okarun says it's a Flatwoods monster, which is like a North American cryptid. He also says that people that see psychic stuff also see UFOs and that they must have some kind of correlation. I don't know if this is planting like a seed for the future, but I kind of hope so because I wonder if there's something cool going on there. Momo can't fight the Flatwoods monster and keep Turbo Granny's curse under control at the same time. So Okarun decides to try and let the curse take over him to try and fight the monster. He tells Momo to let it take over his body, but not his mind. And I'm like, well, yeah, that would be pretty convenient. Can she do that? I think Momo kind of has the same reaction because she's never done this. But she tries it and it works. And we get a fucking badass grayscale demon Okarun transformation with like glowing red highlights. His hair and clothes look like they're on fire. It's sick, dude. The way he talks in this Turbo Okarun form is interesting. It caught me pretty off guard at first, but I kind of got used to it and I think I like it now. I'm someone who really is fascinated by voice acting. It's just something that for my whole life I've really loved. And my one like weird skill that I have is that I can usually guess voice actors correctly almost 100% of the time. But I genuinely didn't even consider that this was Okarun's voice actor. And I'm pretty sure it is. So, hats off to you. Great job. In the dub, Turbo Okarun uses like a lot of weird kind of like internet slang. I think they kind of tone this down a little bit. I think this is probably one of those things where it's kind of harder to convey whatever they were conveying about this character in Japanese and English. But the voice acting performance, great. So anyway, Okarun tries to attack the Flatwoods monster and just like immediately gets fucking clapped. Or at least it looks like he did, but he was actually able to dodge so fast that we couldn't even see it. He says he didn't even have to think about it. He gets up in the monster's grill, he's giving off some serious aura, but then he just suddenly coughs up a bunch of blood and then he gets clapped for real this time. Okarun is still pretty weak, so I think he kind of just can't really control the transformation that well yet. And it's really hard on his body. So Momo uses her powers to pull Okarun to safety. Getting clapped by the Flatwoods monster kicked him right out of the transformation, and this dude's hurting. Momo realizes the monster is assuming like a sumo pose and wonders if they can defeat it by making his hands touch the ground, which I think are sumo rules. So Okarun transforms again, and the two of them work together to trip up the Flatwoods monster and get him to touch a hand to the ground. And it starts like melting into the ground. Like the ground is like an eraser and it's just deleting his arm. But it manages to flip over and get back to its feet and regains its composure. And then the monster fucking yeets Momo into a wall and then slams her again. I don't really know how she survives this. But I guess some anime just kind of gives the characters like some extreme durability. Like I don't think there's any fall damage in One Piece. So she's just like pancaked, stuck to the wall, like the hole that the Kool-Aid man leaves when he blasts through one. But she still has to use her powers to control Okarun. While she's still stuck to the wall, the monster just starts like super punching her through the fucking wall. Like just a barrage of fists just destroying this girl. Which apparently was Momo's plan all along, because all of those punches pushed her outside of the Torii gate. Like she got smashed into the cement wall hard enough that it pushed her past the Torii gate. Some pretty sick, jazzy, like hype music kicks in, and she uses her powers to telekinetically pull Okarun to her and kind of hugs him in her arm, which again, are pretty cute, but is also very necessary. And then holding Okarun in one arm, she uses the other arm to psychically lift the seal off the ground and slap it back on the Torii gate. Momo's a savage, dude. The monster immediately bursts into those ghostly flames pretty epically, dude. There's a pretty sick shot that looks like a manga panel of this monster being fucking incinerated. There's a bright flash, and Momo and Okarun like tuck their faces into each other to protect their eyes from the light, and they just suddenly flash back to reality. They're just sitting there on the ground in each other's arms. And again, cute. It's like a bright sunny day. All the buildings and everything from Momo's house are all perfectly intact despite seemingly being destroyed during that battle. Momo points out that Okarun's hair went from that afro thing he had going on before to like cool little spiky anime boy hair, and the transformation to Chad begins. Momo just fucking passes out, which, yeah, I mean, fair. She was pretty much doing all the work that entire time. But that allows Turbo Granny to just immediately take over, which honestly looks very painful. He's like all deformed from it, bent over backwards on the ground with like long spindly limbs, and the episode ends. Oh, real quick, I didn't mention this in my last video, but the outro song for season 1 of Dandadan also fucking slaps. And there's so many good animations during it. All the animations of the cats dancing crack me up. I love them. The aura of that cat, dude. Anyway, yeah, solid episode, cool action, and Momo and Okarun are pretty cute, I can't lie. We got the first appearance of Okarun's Turbo Granny transformation, which is just undeniably badass. I mean, that's a fucking sick design. It's one for the ages. But yeah, good ep. Episode 3. So this episode starts out with like some kind of TV broadcast of a lady in a mask with a crystal ball doing some kind of fortune telling shit on this guy who's like a famous idol, but she just gets everything wrong. She like guesses that he's 27 with a wife and kid, and everyone's like, is she crazy? This dude's like 20 years old. Some production guys comment on how none of what she predicted could possibly be true. The lady's in a cab, and the driver asks if she's really a psychic, which pisses her off, so she tells him to pull over and just gets out. The driver's like, I wasn't trying to insult you, I just wanted a prediction. And she's like, I predict you'll die if you don't get the fuck out of here. Which fucking cracked me up, dude. This lady's stone cold. Back at Momo's house, the fucking entire world is lit up red for some reason, and Okarun, possessed by the spirit of Turbo Granny, looks like he's about to fucking gobble up Momo or something. The lady from the cab shows up and easily subdues Demon Okarun, and we find out that this is Momo's grandma that she's been talking about. Now, I'd gotten this spoiled for me shortly before I saw it, but I was still pretty gagged by the fact that she was like, looks super young and is fine as hell. Like, I just thought her grandma was super old and possibly dead with the way that she talked about her, which I think was on purpose. She wields this metal baseball bat like a fucking badass, which is also a giant pencil. The English dub voice for this character, as with pretty much everyone in this show, is fantastic. So she uses some witchcraft type shit to bind Turbo Granny Okarun inside a circle on the ground, which kind of establishes that she's like pretty proficient with this stuff. The grandma says she's gonna kill Turbo Granny, and Turbo Granny's like, oh yeah, well then the kid I possess dies too. But Momo's grandma is just like, I don't give a fuck about some scumbag. A little while later, Momo startles awake in bed. She runs downstairs to find her grandma just straight like lounging on the floor watching TV. I gotta mention, I feel like her fit here is kind of ridiculous. She's wearing this like strappy underwear thing that kind of just looks like bondage gear, and she's just laying in this pretty ridiculous pose on the ground. Like everything about this character is kind of very horny, but at the same time, if I'm gonna keep it 100% real with you, I don't know that I really hate it. She was also cracking me up in this scene, dude. Again, this voice actor is fantastic. So I actually want to show a clip really quick. Like I said, I've been watching the dub, but I randomly watched part of the Japanese sub version for this episode. And obviously, I don't speak Japanese, so I can't pick up nuance or anything like that quite as well. But I went from thinking that the dub actors were doing a very good job with what they were given to now kind of thinking that the dub almost seems like it's better. In this scene, when she's laying on the ground laughing at the TV, she does this laugh that in the English dub was like burned in my brain because I just noticed it. I don't know. I was just like, that is such a real sounding laugh. And when I heard the Japanese version, I was like, oh, this one doesn't sound like that. That was just a choice by the English voice actor. And she murdered it. So let me just show you the clip. Here's the Japanese sub version.
バカ殿は日本の宝だぜ。ねえ、聞いてんのかよ。
And here's the English dub. Let me just listen to it really fast.
This Bakatono's a national treasure. Stop watching.
Dude, it's so good. Like, that is... How do you even do that? Like, that laugh feels completely authentic. Anyway, so Momo is kind of panicking about Okarun because she has no idea what happened to him, but her grandma's kind of just blowing her off. Momo asks if she's seen a boy around because it'll be bad if she doesn't find him, and she's just like, you mean like that ghost I killed? Like bad like that? Momo obviously knows that ghosts are real now and needs her grandma's help. So her grandma's just like busting her balls about the fact that she didn't used to believe in ghosts and called her a fake medium. So Momo gets on the floor and bows and apologizes and asks her to tell her what happened to the spirit. She tells her to check in the shrine, and Momo just like immediately flips back to her hot-headed self. She sprints out of there like, he better not be dead. She has some flashes of memories of Okarun, which again, these two are very cute. When she busts into the shrine, Okarun's just kind of like sitting on the floor snacking on a rice ball. So she flips again and is mad that he's alive, I guess. Or she's really just embarrassed that she obviously was worried about him. You know, teenagers. Her grandma admits that she let Momo think Okarun was dead just to fuck with her. She seems to really enjoy just antagonizing people. Certainly Momo. So Momo tells her grandma that Turbo Granny stole Okarun's dick, and that she wants to help him, but she doesn't know what to do. Her grandma teases her for being into Okarun. Momo also tells her grandma that she unlocked her psychic powers after being abducted by aliens. But her grandma's like, aliens aren't real. The grandma explains that Turbo Granny has been around a while. She used to be called 100 kilometers an hour Granny, because, like, I guess her thing is just running fast. She says she used to rampage all over the country. At some point in the past, she had heard that Turbo Granny was hanging out in that tunnel where Okarun found her. But when she went to check it out, apparently the spiritual power was so strong that she couldn't even go inside. Apparently Turbo Granny had fused with some kind of extra powerful bound spirit that was bound to the tunnel. And she basically just tells Momo to forget about Okarun because she ain't going to be able to help him. Momo's like, what would Ken Takakura do? The other Ken, the real Ken. And her grandma busts her balls because she's like, wait, the kid told me his name was Ken. She runs up to the shrine and shouts to Okarun through the door, hey kid, she's totally in love with you, congrats. And that shit fucking cracked me up, dude. This voice actor's hilarious.
Hey kid, she's totally in love with you. Congrats. No!
So anyway, the grandma says they need to make a plan, and she suggests that they play tag. Basically, Turbo Granny is vain enough that if they challenge her to a race, she'll accept. At which point they can lure her outside of the city limits where the bound spirit that she's fused with will lose power, which will weaken them enough that Momo and Okarun should be able to defeat them. Her grandma also explains that she can't help with this because she borrows her power from the god of the territory that they live in. So outside of the city, she doesn't have any power either. Also, this isn't super important, but at one point I looked up the city they live in, Kamigoe City, and somehow I didn't realize this is not a real place. But it makes sense because they go around just fucking this place up. Momo's like, I'm not fast enough to outrun Turbo Granny. I'm not even good at running. And her grandma's like, yeah, that's why we get the kid with the fucking super fast running superpowers to do it. Momo has to stay close to Okarun to keep his power under control, so her grandma suggests that she ride piggyback like Banjo-Kazooie, which I honestly love. Okarun establishes that he can only go all out twice, which is kind of just like a weird stereotypical shonen nerf. I kind of don't love this. Like, the rule of it being 2 times just feels arbitrary and too specific. Momo's grandma basically just says that they have to get good and says she'll train them. Okarun gets all emo again and says he's gonna get stronger so he can save Momo instead of her having to save him all the time. Momo tells Okarun that he's staying in the shrine tonight. He asks her to go get him a drink, and then I think she's wearing his glasses in the next shot while getting him a drink, which is really cute, but also, can this man see? On the TV, there's a news report revealing that the pop idol from the fortune telling at the beginning, like, got outed for lying about his age, and he had like a whole secret family. So everything that Momo's grandma predicted about him was actually correct, which is pretty strange, but it's a funny, fun little detail. I guess maybe they wanted us to like question the legitimacy of Momo's grandma, and now that we've seen that she's fucking legit as fuck, they can do like a little rug pull on that intro scene and be like, just kidding, that dude lied. The next morning, Okarun has to use the bathroom, but Momo has to be able to see him to suppress Turbo Granny's curse, so she has to watch him. Momo explains that she can see auras and they're like in everything, and she can grab them, which lets her move things telekinetically within a small range. Her grandma tells Momo to try closing her eyes to sense the auras. She ends up being able to sense out Okarun's, and it's like a fiery black and red that she says feels cold when she touches it. Whatever that means. Momo doesn't want to watch Okarun in the bathroom, so he's still just about to like shit himself this whole time. The grandma calls Okarun Kenta Kakura, and Momo like swoons at the mere mention of his name. And I'm just like, girl, get it together. So she stares at him on the toilet. The grandma says that when Momo was glowing green when she first unlocked her powers in the UFO, that was like her full power, and that it somehow got sealed off and she has to figure out how to unlock it again. Momo looks away from Okarun for a minute, and when she looks back in the bathroom, there's like a giant fucking demonic Turbo Granny head in there, and everything is all red again. Her grandma and Okarun just start like bleeding from the ears and nose. Turbo Granny says the curse is contagious, so she can basically just kill anyone that Okarun even looks at. She tells Momo to come to the tunnel tonight, or she'll use Okarun to curse and kill everybody. That night, Momo's grandma gave her and Okarun these like kind of goofy looking traditional outfits that she says are evil spirit proof. They are like all embarrassed about it, but I think they look very cute. They look awesome. There's this shot where Momo is talking, but her mouth doesn't move at all. It's pretty weird, actually.
You know, we might look harmless, but we did beat up those aliens pretty good.
I like rewound it a couple times to make sure I wasn't tripping. I don't know if this is just a dub thing, like if this happened in the sub or what, but I'm just like, couldn't they just showed something other than Momo's face during that line? Like, did they forget that it was Okarun that's wearing the thing that's covering his face and not Momo? So Momo and her grandma like have some of their classic little banter, but then when she goes to leave, her grandma runs up behind her and gives her a hug. The next scene, Momo and Okarun are in their little outfits on like a mostly full train. Okarun apologizes for putting Momo in this dangerous situation, but Momo's like, fuck that. She threatened my grandma. It's on sight. She's fired up, and honestly, Momo's pretty badass, dude. And that's the end of the episode. It's a solid intro to Momo's grandma. I'm not really sure when they established that her name is SEIKO, but I assume I either just missed it or it'll be pretty soon. So I think I'm just going to start calling her that now. Also, bro, was that a fucking post-credit scene? Does this show just have those? How many of these did I miss? I went back and checked the first 2 episodes, and they don't have a post-credit scene like this. So I don't know why this one randomly does. But there's just this like little bonus scene where Momo changes out of her traditional spirit-proof clothes into some hip street clothes. She says fashion is the best armor for Gyaru, which for one is pretty much just a fucking crazy thing to say. But it also feels like as good a time as any to bring this up. I wasn't really familiar with the concept of Gyaru, but basically it's like a Japanese fashion style and subculture. And this is the fashion style that Momo and her friends dress in. And I assume also probably the reason that they talk the way that they do. It's also hard not to notice after a while that there's like a direction choice in this show to never allow these characters to say words ending in ing without cutting the G off like that. Momo's always saying like thinking and doing and also ain't. I usually don't mind it or even really notice it, but sometimes I do, and it can be a little awkward. Anyway, moving right along, episode 4. Momo and Okarun arrive at the tunnel after dark. They go inside with flashlights. On the way in, they notice some water trickling out from like a suspicious, crumbly hole in the ceiling of the tunnel. Momo shines her flashlight down the tunnel, and there's just a fucking huge turbo granny head filling the entire tunnel. Just like face down with the top of her head pointed towards them, filling the whole tunnel. Just a giant top of a head. They turn around and look down the tunnel the other way, and there's just another fucking giant turbo granny head taking up that entire side of the tunnel. Momo uses her telekinesis to throw some baseball bats at one of the turbo granny heads, but this thing's fucking eyes just open up into little mouths with teeth and just fucking chomp these baseball bats. It's pretty gross. So Momo helps Okarun transform into Turbo Okarun, and we see his feet grow super long and like bust out of his shoes. But right when he starts running towards Turbo Granny, he just like immediately reverts back into normal Okarun. Turbo Granny says she gave him his dick back. She's like, yeah, well, I thought this was gonna make things harder for you. I didn't realize you were gonna use it to your advantage, so I just took the power back. So both giant granny heads go to gobble up Momo and Okarun from both sides when Momo remembers her grandma telling her to taunt Turbo Granny. She challenges her to a race and she's like, what are you, stupid? I'm the fastest motherfucker alive. I'm like the fucking Flash in this piece. So she asks Momo the rules and she tells her it's a game of tag and she just has to catch them. She tells her she has to wait 10 minutes to chase them to give them a head start, but Turbo Granny just starts counting all crazy. She's like 1, 2, 5 minutes, 8 minutes. She chases after them before they're even out of the tunnel and immediately traps Momo in some kind of goopy amalgamation of ghost limbs that instantly solidifies around her like cement. Turbo Granny says her 10 minutes were up and she'll start the 10 minutes for Okarun, but she counts all crazy again. She said she hates rule breakers before, but when Okarun calls her out for that, she's like, no one said how to count. Like, what? There's only one way to count. By that logic, there's probably no rules that would apply to this person. Yeah, this dick-stealing demon. Yeah, it's probably accurate, actually. So Okarun spent the whole 10 minutes arguing and didn't even try to run, so he's still just standing there when the time's up. So what happens next is another one of these things where I don't really know how to describe this in a way that doesn't make me feel super uncomfortable. But suffice it to say, he bites onto her and holds on like an angry dog. She can't pull him off because the clothes Granny SEIKO gave him protect him against spirits. So she turns into her ghost form thing and just kind of jumps into Okarun and takes him over again. She rips off some of the outfit and kicks off the shoes. But Momo, remembering the lesson her grandma tried teaching her about feeling auras, is able to feel Turbo Grannies from inside the solid ghost limb rock that she's trapped in, and she manages to subdue Turbo Granny, returning Okarun to normal. Turbo Granny, like, pops out of Okarun as, like, a little homunculus worm creature, like Envy from FMA, which I thought was pretty funny. But before they even have a chance to enjoy their victory, a giant fucked up crab fucking busts out of the wall of the tunnel. It wants to save Turbo Granny, so it attacks Momo and Okarun. It cuts to the two of them just full on sprinting in the street, and there's this really awesome animation of like a bulge in the sidewall glowing red that like flies along the edge like Bugs Bunny tunneling underground, and then the crab fucking bursts out of the wall behind them. Super cool. So this crab creature is the bound spirit that Granny SEIKO was talking about. It's got these like creepy featureless human looking faces like grafted onto the back of its spiny crab carapace. Momo suppresses Turbo Granny, whose full strength is now inside Okarun, and he transforms into Turbo Okarun. Momo rides on his back while holding on to the Turbo Granny homunculus worm like reins of a horse, and it's pretty great. I love it. Okarun can barely control his turbo form. He can't even really turn while running with Momo on his back, so they just like bust through the guardrail on the side of the road and go flying. They land in the city, the crab is still chasing them, and Momo points out that regular people can't even see the crab, which is kind of interesting. I mean, I guess there's been a couple mentions of people being able to see aliens and ghosts, but I'm curious to know a little bit more about this as the show goes on. Okarun reminds Momo that he only has 2 of those all-outs, and he's already used them, Again, this isn't really my favorite thing. It kind of feels like too much of a hard rule that doesn't make a ton of sense. And also the window of time that he can use the two all outs in isn't really clear. So Okarun runs into a building and the crab follows them in, just fucking like busting right through the walls. They end up in a room full of water because I guess this is like a bathhouse. Momo uses her power to grab and burst a pipe, which blasts the crab with hot, steamy water and basically just like cooks it alive. Momo's a little psycho. She's immediately just like, oh, it looks delicious. She literally wants to eat it. So they go outside, and a giant horde of possessed looking people just immediately start charging at them. Turbo Granny says she tapped into the power of the spirits at a local cemetery to get more power. Somehow. I don't really know how this works, but whatever. I guess it's because it's like her territory. So they're running from all these creeps and the crab, and Momo trips and falls. Momo tells Okarun to go all out again because they don't have any other choice. He does it, and the music choice here is kind of silly. It's like this bizarre remix of the William Tell overture. You know, like the horse racing song. Like, you know the one. I don't know. I mean, it kind of works, but it's also pretty silly. It's also, as we'll see eventually going forward with this show, not the only instance of classical music in this series. I'm not really sure what that means or whose choice that was, but it is interesting. So they sprint off with Momo on Turbo Okarun's back. She's using her telekinetic ghost hands to part the crowds of zombie freaks like Moses. Okarun still can't turn, so Momo uses her ghost hands to like grab onto stuff and like slingshot them around, which I think is rad. The crab like appears in front of them, so Okarun runs right over it and launches off. But I guess because he's like pushing himself past his limits, Okarun just reverts to his regular form in midair. These ghost hands Momo has are really clutch because she manages to use them to, I think, kind of like slow them down like a parachute. And then I think Okarun flashes back into Turbo Okarun like just long enough for them to land safely. Well, alive. They definitely got fucked up. Momo like lost track of Turbo Granny, so she unfuses with Okarun and spawns herself back into her human form, witch lady form, the version of her with a body. Turbo Granny's able to pretty easily knock Momo and Okarun on their ass. The crab, the zombie horde, and Turbo Granny are all just like posted up, ready to just fuck their shit up. And Turbo Granny fuses with the crab to make an even freakier fucking cursed monster. It's still a giant crab, but now it's got like a Turbo Granny face mashed into it with like giant glowing eyes and 3 mouths and 3 noses. Momo uses her ghost hands again to grab a passing train and flies out of there with Okarun. The bound spirit Turbo Granny crab monster chases after them. Momo points out that Turbo Granny is the 100 kilometers an hour granny and that the train goes 120 kilometers an hour. But then it has to slow down to make a turn, so Turbo Granny catches up to them like immediately. But always one to have another trick up her sleeve, Momo grabs Turbo Granny with her ghost hands, and we see Granny SEIKO is waiting down the track, just over the line into her own territory. There's like a hard line going right up through the sky, where it goes from everything being red on Turbo Granny's side to normal on the other side, which is pretty cool. Momo like extracts Turbo Granny from one of the mouths of this crab, then just fucking like blows it up. Some green glowing magical ghost bubbles pour out, along with what appears to be like the spirits of a bunch of young women. Momo has to like drag Okarun off the train because dude's just knocked the fuck out. Granny SEIKO explains that the tunnel was a place where young women were assaulted and murdered, turning them into evil spirits. So it sounds like their spirits somehow fused and became bound to the tunnel, creating that bound spirit crab monster. She also says Turbo Granny would show up near the spirits of murdered girls, which she thinks is because she was trying to console the spirits that couldn't pass on to the afterlife. So basically Turbo Granny was trying to help these young women. So Turbo Granny isn't all bad, but Granny SEIKO's also like, yeah, but also like don't attack people, you know? That's still not cool. She's like, not to rub it in, but that's why you don't go fucking with ghosts in their territory. Cause you kind of brought this all on yourselves. Back at home, they're all feasting. Well, at least Momo and Granny SEIKO are. They're eating crab legs, which doesn't seem to bother anyone except for Okarun. Granny Seiko's like, "You sure you got your dick back?" She asks Okarun to show her that he did, in fact, get his dick back, just to be sure. And then she, like, chases him all around the house. It's a little creepy in a way, kinda. But also, like, she's the expert. I mean, you let a doctor look. There's this shot of Momo outside with Okarun, and they drew her with just, like, a little ditto face. Like, just a smiley face, just two dot eyes and a smile. It's pretty funny. So Okarun thanks Momo for their help. Momo says Granny Seiko just chased Okarun around the house because she thought he was depressed and wanted to cheer him up. And, like, I could see why you would think that. This kid's always moping. So Okarun leaves with a hard goodbye. And these two teenagers both have, like, a little crisis over that. They're like, goodbye? What does that mean? But before Okarun crosses through the Torii gate to leave, Momo yells out, "See you tomorrow," with a big smile and a wave. And this sort of becomes like their little thing. And like I keep saying, these two are adorable. So yeah, it's another good episode. I'm not really a big action guy, so scenes in shows where the only plot you really get is just like a big fight scene or a chase tend to lose me a little bit. But honestly, all this was pretty cool. It's animated super cool. And we get some good development for the bond between Momo and Okarun during it. So overall, good episode. So that's it for part 1. We got through the first 4 episodes. What did you think? Do you agree with my takes? Did I miss anything? I'll probably kind of be working on all of these videos simultaneously, and I'm not really sure how long they'll take me, but part 2 covering the next 4 episodes should be out pretty soon. But anyway, as always, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.